3D printing the Levithan box set would be dead simple. Puppets War makes some amazing miniatures that pretty much do that entire 10th edition box set. But that's not what we're going to do here today. We're going to make it a little bit bigger and make it a little bit cooler, because we're going to take like a Space Marine proxy and we're going to take a Tyrranid proxy and we're going to build a badass diorama that's going to be absolutely fire. For this project, I'm going to be using my Sonic Mighty 4K printer, and I'm going to pair it with some SUNLU Resin. But before I started, I had to throw the files in Blender because I had to modify the flamethrower. Basically what I had to do was make a cylinder and bore a hole through the barrel so I can feed some LEDs in to wire this thing later. Now I'm really excited to show you guys this. This is Voxel Dance Tango. This is a new slicer program that I had the privilege to use. And right off the hop, I already like it because it's really easy on the eyes and has a real logical layout. The first thing I did was upload my printer from a list of hundreds of printers, so don't worry, your printer is going to be there. The default settings for this was bang on in the slicer program to what I like to see for this printer. Then I went ahead and I loaded in the SUNLU Resin, and I set the price of this resin so I can get accurate calculations of how much the parts are going to make. Then, uploading files was a breeze. I took my Puppets War mini files and I just dragged them and dropped them, or you can upload them. Now, the menu bar up top has everything you're going to need here. You can see here I moved it in the X, Y, and Z directions. You can do it specifically by grabbing the arrowheads, or if you want to free move it, you can grab that little box in the corner and free move it. Now, one really cool thing about this is when you rotate it, it projects the angle with a yellow shaded bar. I found that really helpful when you're manipulating these minis. Now, when you guys are printing minis, it's always good to place it slightly backwards to hide a lot of the support lines. Now, one really cool thing I did here was scale this up. And Voxel Dance Tango does all uniform scalings. So basically, I scaled this up to 1.75 times as big. Once I had this in position and scaled up, I maneuvered it to the center of the bed, and then I wanted to try out the automatic supports here. You can see here there's a drop down menu. I selected Smart Supports. I changed the settings just slightly to what I like to see, and I gave it a go to see what I could come up with. And right off the hop, I was highly impressed with Voxel Dance Tango's supports. They were very thorough and none of them were clouding with the model. Really nicely done. Now I always slowly check up to make sure that I'm not missing any islands. Normally you're going to miss an island here and there, but the nice thing about Voxel Dance Tango is when you miss an island, it has a feature here where you can just add a support in that area. You can even pick the type of support you want. There's a whole bunch of really cool options here for adding support, so I'm going to play with more on my channel. So stick around on my channel if you want to see that. But then I had the whole thing supported up and ready to slice. There are two slices here. You can do a normal slice or you can do adaptive slice. I went with the normal slice because I like the consistency of it. Here you can see this part was only going to run me about $1, about 16 hours of print. And then it also shows a projection of what each layer is going to be. You can output your files onto the flash drive, no problem loading in your printer. But another thing I thought was cool was the ability to mirror in XYZ, whatever way you want, and when you're printing miniatures is a good way to get some additional poses by simply mirroring the model. Once that was ready, I loaded in my resin and it was ready to print. So the combination of this Voxel Dance Tango Slicer, the SUNLU Resin, and the Mighty 4K produced some absolutely phenomenal prints this time around. You can see how clean and crisp they are here on this build plate. Here is the Tyrranid model. This thing came out absolutely beautiful as well. Two perfect prints. The bed adhesion was really good, and this resin is really nice to work with when you're doing post-processing. Once I had this thing ready, you can see the Voxel Dance Tango Smart Supports here. Super nice, and look how easy it comes out. Just beautifully done. Love the supports on this slicer program. Next up was a wash and cure, and when the miniature was ready, it was time to assemble them. Here we got the Space Marine ready to go, and on to the bug. Now guys, if you want to see me paint these things up, go ahead and smash subscribe. I'm working on the tutorial video to show you how to do both of these paint schemes. Super easy, super fast, does an amazing job, very little effort. You're going to want to subscribe and make sure you check that video out. I'm going to use this little wooden panel here for the base. We're going to build up the diorama with some SM foam, and we're going to use this painting canvas to make the backdrop. And we got some really cool LEDs here that's really going to make this flamethrower effect come to life. The first thing I did was cut this piece of foam down to size so it would fit the base. Then I got out my hot foam cutter and I started to carve away at it to kind of make a little bit of a crevice or like an uphill slope. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at this point, but I just started carving away at it. Then it was time to bust out my own flamethrower, and I like to do this with foam because it's a quick and easy way to put some organic texture on it. I had an idea here to fill the crevice with some cracked up pieces, but when I tried to melt them, they pretty much disintegrated. Anyway, I went ahead and scaled up some terrain pieces to the same size as the minis and printed them, and I was going to use that to place on this diorama. Then, using some corkboard, I cracked it up to make like destroyed pavement. And instead of having styrofoam in this crevice, I just used pavement, and it actually turned out pretty good. Next, I drew an image of a tile in light burn. Here are my settings: 2000 speed by 60 power, and I use my O-Tour Laser Master 3 to burn a pattern in some craft foam. Craft foam is awesome for stuff like this. You can see here with those settings, it just made a nice textured tile. Then I went ahead and used some gunmetal and dry brushed some paint into this. But the worst thing about craft foam, it doesn't like to take paint very easy. But it was a really quick way to make some flooring for the back of this building here. Then I used some sand and rubble and rocks, and I just made this thing really dirty and rubbly. Onto a base coat of Deco Art Black mixed with some Mod Podge, and I covered this entire base and made sure I glued all those little pieces of sand down even tighter. A quick dry brush of leather brown and all the ground parts, followed by a highlight of Monster Brown. Made that ground pop nice and easy. Then I did the pavement with some Summer Gray, followed by some Ash Gray highlighting. Next, a little trick I like to use, some truck bed liner to base coat my FDM model here. And this just helps hide all the layer lines. Then a downward spray of your favorite metallic paint makes for a really quick and easy paint job on some terrain. Of course, this is a diorama, so I went in and added some more details with some dry brushing of some silver. And then I kind of wanted to make the end here scorched, so using my airbrush I applied some black and some gray to make like old scorch marks on this room. Now that I got these couple of pieces made, I gotta go ahead and paint the canvas and do the background. Now I'm no artist and I've never done something like this before, but I'm gonna go ahead and do my best to paint some sort of background. Let's get at it. I figured the best way to attempt this for the first time was to burst out my Gaahleiri Air Brushes. I started by base coating the canvas entirely in black, and then using various grays, I started to basically shade and highlight a smoky, soot-filled background. I concentrated on the lighter parts towards the middle and worked my way up to an ash gray, and then finally worked my way all the ways up to a white to make this skyline here. but I wanted some clouds, so I went in and did my best to make some clouds using my airbrush with some darker color paint. Actually turned out pretty decently, a little bit of black to help highlight those clouds. And I was happy with that, so then I used matte varnish on the whole thing because the next step was to mask it off with some tape. Guys, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to smash that like button. And I appreciate it because this was definitely a challenging part of the video. Once I had it masked off, I painted it black and I used my airbrush again to try to make some sort of building here. So I just made floors basically 2 inches all the way up, and I had a little stencil here for some windows that I cut out of my foam with my laser cutter, a little metallic into the building, and just worked away at it until I had a shadowy outline of maybe a distant building. Once that was done, I did go in with my paintbrush and outline things just to make it a little more sharper. I tried to freehand in some extra details on the building. And then I decided I was going to make some missiles or drop pods or meteors or something just raining out of the sky. So I used my airbrush again, cut some slips in my masking tape, worked up from white to yellow, and then finally a really bright orange. And then it was time to unmask everything. So this took way longer than I thought. You can see I added some flames and some smoke to the building, and you know what? I think it turned out all right. So now I gotta go ahead and wire the LEDs in and put the miniatures into place and finish this diorama up. I think this is the third video that I've used these LEDs on, and I got to say it really makes projects pop. So basically, I pulled the wire through the flamethrower, I used the blue wire, and I tried to hide it the best I could and chase it down the body of the Space Marine and then coming out at the leg. Next, I glued the Tyrranid in place. Then I drilled a hole for the wire and I placed the Space Marine down. Then using the LED filament, I pulled it tight and basically just glued it to the Tyrranid and then wrapped it around him. Once that was done, I had to drill another hole to feed the wire up for the other end of the LED strip, and I wired it to a little battery box on the bottom of this diorama. And just like that, it lit up. Now, the fun part, some cotton balls. A little bit of glue. I wrapped the cotton balls around the LED filament to make the smoke really easy, but comes out amazing. And I got to thank all the members on my Patreon, past and present. You guys rock. I wish I could do more for you, but the simple fact that there's people out there supporting me pushes me to finish these videos into the late hours of the night when I'm usually working on these things. Thanks again, guys. You guys rock. I added some yellow and some black just to make that smoke pop. Then it was time to put the building in place. Just used a little bit of hot glue. And then finally the background. Now guys, make sure you check out Voxel Dance Tango. They got an awesome slicer, highly recommend it. And here we go, a look at the final product. That flame effect just looks so cool. Super happy with this diorama, really cool. Don't forget to subscribe, check out some more videos on my channel, got a whole bunch here, and I'm going to catch you on the next one.